Jeff Dimery, welcome to 7:30 South Australia.
Thank you, Simon.
Does a carbon tax spell the effective end of Playford Power Station?
Well, we're yet to understand the details of a carbon tax policy and what it might look like. Right now we're sitting here and I don't think there's any point being alarmed at things we don't know about. Certainly it's the view of Alinta Energy that we're planning for the future for our workers in the Port Augusta region to continue on.
Is Danny Price from Frontier Economics correct in his assessment of what a carbon tax means?
Again, it depends on the size of the tax, and so I can't be specific in terms of the financial impact at this point. We do want to understand that better, and so we are engaged with the federal government to understand what the policy might look like.
Yes, but taking his assumptions, is he right? Is Frontier Economics right?
Look, there's no doubt that Frontier Economics are a very competent consultancy firm, and I've no reason to doubt that Danny's modelling would be accurate based on the assumptions that he would be using.
But it remains an if at the moment.
It remains a big if. And look, we're here to find solutions and a way forward. And even if we get a carbon tax, and depending on where that carbon tax sits, we're certainly not sitting on our hands at Alinta. We're trying to come up with solutions to ensure the longevity of our power station.
But it is fair enough to say, is it not, that Playford as it stands at the moment, under a carbon tax that was proposed at a level proposed in 2008, really has no future?
Carbon tax is clearly designed to force a shift in technology in the way that power is produced, and so it will force a favouring of renewable or gas-fired power stations over coal-fired power stations.
Can I take that as a yes?
You can have a yes for that.
Yes, it spells the end of Playford.
Well, again, I'm not willing to concede that at this point. I don't understand what the policy looks like, when it will be in place, the size of that. There's no doubt that in any event we are planning for future to replace Playford at some point in time. That's inevitable. And we're looking at ways to extend the useful life of our mine and our northern power station. Is
that reinvestment that you're looking at going to be in Port Augusta?
That's the interesting question. And today the short answer is it would not be. The infrastructure is not there. If we move to a cleaner fuel source such as gas, there's no gas infrastructure at Port Augusta. But to me that's part of the solution, talking with the federal government about rather than being compensated directly in the form of cash, whether we get some subsidies or government choose to invest in important infrastructure like a pipeline to Port Augusta. There are so many benefits of replacing Playford at Port Augusta. For instance, we have a skilled workforce in Port Augusta. It would have a big impact on the local community if we were to close down the power station. So we want to work with the federal government to understand both the economic and social impacts on the communities in which we operate.
We haven't spoken of Northern Power Station at all, and that's the primary one there. Does that mean it is relatively secure?
Again, I don't want to preempt the magnitude of any price on carbon, but certainly its emissions intensity is much lower than the Playford plant. It's much newer kit. So I would like to think that even with a carbon tax, the Northern Power Station will continue to supply baseload to South Australia for many years to come.
So are you looking for a transition package from the state and federal government to help?
Not at all, Simon. As I mentioned, we don't yet know what the policy looks like. Certainly we don't have our head in the sand. We understand at Alinta that we're heading towards a carbon-constrained future. We're interested in the growth of our business. Our core business is to provide energy to the community, and we're looking for ways to grow our business. We want to be part of the solution. We're not out there scaremongering, and quite frankly, I think these are all issues that can be resolved.
So the lights aren't going to go out?
No, I think that's silly to suggest that would be the case.
How much time do you need to plan and build a power station? And given that you don't know yet what the level of a carbon tax will be, how is that uncertainty playing into that?
It takes a long time to obviously build a power station. In fact, if you're building baseload power station, you need around about 5 years of planning. The market operator, AEMO, recently issued their statement of opportunities, and that indicated that South Australia had sufficient power supply for quite a few years to come. So we're certainly not in a position to panic at this point. We do take a longer term view on these investments, and irrespective of whether or not a carbon tax was introduced, we start planning for a replacement for Playford down the track, just because its age and where it's at.
Would you be looking for some sort of transition package specifically for Playford to support you during that period of time?
We're, again, happy to talk to government about infrastructure that needs to be built into the future. As I said, it suits us and it suits the community if Playford were replaced in Port Augusta. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. We already have the electricity infrastructure in place to deliver the power from Port Augusta to the load centre in Adelaide.
But as it stands at the moment, you were saying that's not going to happen because...
No, that's right. And so they're the things that we are interested to talk to government about. Now,
how much money are you looking at?
Certainly from our perspective, we'd look at the cost of a refurbishment, and we would take the opportunity to build a bigger, more efficient plant at that point in time. So from Alinta's perspective, we could be looking at a $400 million investment for the future of our business.
And what sort of level of support would you expect from government, state and federal?
Again, I think we're looking at the infrastructure development of getting the fuel to the site. And so if we could get the federal government and the state government involved, there would be a lot of other regional benefits with that infrastructure being built.
Is there, in your mind, a cost figure on that?
We haven't costed it at this point, and I should add I've been in the job for 3 weeks. So, but it is something that we're working on now. We are commissioning independent regional studies, both from an environmental and a social impact point of view.
Well, just on that note of how recently you've come into the job, my understanding of that is that Alinta has effectively been taken over by its financiers. I'm sorry if I'm not using the correct specific terms, by TPG, which is a large, well-resourced American-based firm. Would you have gone out and bought Port Augusta if you were looking for an investment? In other words, if you didn't have to take it, would you have bought it?
Port Augusta is, from Alinta's perspective, is just one of several assets. Alinta has a wonderful asset footprint here in Australia, exposure to the Pilbara region with gas-fired power stations.
Sure, but what I'm asking was, if you were starting with a clean slate, you got this because you had to take it, would you go out and buy it if it were on the market? Would that be where you'd put your money, or under the current circumstances, does it just look too risky and too uncertain?
Look, it was obviously a conscious decision. We, in making the decision to acquire the business, were well aware of the assets that we would be acquiring, and Port Augusta was one of those assets. Again, we're looking to the future. We're looking for solutions, and we think there are solutions there, and we want to play a key part in the provision of energy in Australia.
How important is it, once a carbon tax comes in, that it stays in terms of certainty of investment?
Look, there's no doubt, sovereign risk if you keep changing your policies along the way. I think that we have one of the best designed energy markets, if not the best designed energy market anywhere in the world. And so not messing with that and leaving it to its own devices so that it can prosper and deliver the security, reliability and affordability of supply that everybody wants is very important.
Does that mean if a coalition government were to come in, once a carbon tax is in, your advice would be, please don't try to unscramble this egg?
I think that the change, as I said, creates the uncertainty, and that is undesirable, so yes.
If we can turn to other matters, my understanding from the unions is that you and the unions are in some industrial disputation starting on Thursday. What's going on?
They have lodged a claim to take protected action. We're in the process of an enterprise bargaining agreement, yes.
Why can't you two agree, meaning the company and the union?
I suppose it's like anything. I don't always agree with my partner at home. Doesn't mean that we don't care for one another. It's just...
You're not married to the union.
It's a commercial negotiation ultimately. We do have our employees' best interests at heart, and that's why we're working hard with the government to ensure, the future of the power station and of the community. I think you'll find that we're not poles apart in terms of where the company is at with the unions and what a fair and reasonable deal looks to be. But we'll work through that.
The unions are also suggesting that they think that you'll bring in outside labour to take over the jobs or fulfil the jobs that may not be being done by people in Port Augusta. Is that correct?
Not at this point, no.
So you could rule out at this point, as the old term is, scab labour?
Yeah, look, it depends on, I suppose, what action the unions take. I mean, again, we're very keen to ensure the security and reliability of energy supply to our customers and to the state of South Australia.
And if that means bringing in outside workers, you would do that to ensure that?
Look, we would be talking to the union about the impact that they would be having on the community. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions. There would be a lot of water to go under the bridge before that was even contemplated.
Jeff Dimery, thanks for talking to us.
You're welcome. Thank you, Simon.